All right, so good evening. Very, very special welcome to tonight's Wisdom Talk. It's a very, very special one because today we're actually celebrating a milestone. It's our 50th episode. Yeah, our 50th Wisdom Talks episode. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you to each and every one of you who's been part of this journey, part of this journey of exploring life's deeper questions together, and also to all of the wonderful volunteers and amazing souls who work tirelessly to make Wisdom Talks happen, whether it's technical staff or organizers or speakers. Everyone's just been amazing, and it's been so wonderful to watch this Wisdom Talks community grow. I can't believe, yeah, it's been 50 episodes already. If I'm being honest, I feel like there've been more, but hopefully here's to another 50 and beyond. But tonight, as we mark this special occasion, we're going to be diving into a theme that lies at the heart of our well-being. So today's all about the art of compassion and self-love. And we're honored to be joined by an extraordinary guest, Nandarane, who's we've been very fortunate to have with us a couple of times on Wisdom Talks. Nandarane is the founding head teacher of the first Avanti school, where she pioneered a holistic approach to education, which is rooted in spiritual values. She continues to inspire as a consultant head teacher, guiding school leaders and participating in judicial hearings. She was just telling me about those today, with deep wisdom and integrity. Beyond education, Nandarane is a trained counselor and therapist, offering well-being training grounded in timeless teachings of the Bhagavad-gita. Her passion for making this ancient wisdom accessible has led her to Oxford, where she undertook her research as a fellow, focusing on bringing the Gita's insights to life for all of us. So as we celebrate our 50th episode, we couldn't think of a more meaningful topic or a more inspiring guest to help us unpack how compassion and self-love are not just ideals, but practices that we can actually embody, guided by the profound philosophy of the Bhagavad-gita. So please join me in giving a very, very warm welcome to Nandarane. Hey, Nandarane.
Hello, Sarge. Thank you so much for having me. Good evening, everybody. And I'm so delighted to be here and actually share something with you that I think is work in progress for many of us, you know. Before I start, let's start with a meditation. So just everybody just ground yourselves. And as you're taking a deep breath in and out, just let go of everything that's gone on today. You know, the people, the weather, whatever the challenges have been, the situation, and just allow that to go. Allow the masks that we sometimes have to hold in different roles and positions. Let that go. And just breathe in, tuning into the truth of who you are. Knowing that the madness of this world sometimes isn't as real. And as my boss said to me last week, nobody died, so don't worry. So just letting go. And in this moment, please allow me to say a prayer. Just listening to the sound vibration. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So praying to all the teachers in this world who remove the darkness of ignorance. Sometimes trying to work out the world and the ways of the world can be very challenging and difficult. But when we come across great teachers, they enliven us and they enlighten us to understand the truth of who we are and the path that we are on. So just inviting all the teachers of the past, inviting them to come and join us this evening and praying for their mercy. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine. Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pracharne Nivishesha Sunyavadi Pashtata Destani. Calling upon the most compassionate, most loving, most merciful, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Gadadhar Shivas Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Calling the most feminine, loving, unconditional energy of the Lord, the most attractive energy of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Right, well, very lovely. Good evening to you all. I'm going to share a presentation with you today, and let's begin. So just get my slideshow ready. May I ask if you see the actual screen, or are you seeing my notes?
I can see your screen. I can see your screen.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, not that I have notes, but I have a screen with notes. But anyway, that's neither here or there. So, dear participants, today we're looking at the art of compassion and self-love. How do we cultivate compassion, elevate our consciousness? And we're looking at this from a spiritual insight. Sometimes the material world tells you, you know, be compassionate, and sometimes you try to be compassionate, you get into complicated relationships. Sometimes compassion can end up, there's a Gujarati saying there, Animadakar, that in the eyes of compassion, it can actually become like a witch. So what does that mean? You know, what does compassion mean in the material world? What does compassion mean from a spiritual context? And again, the same for self-love. So the objectives of today's session are really, how do we understand what's the spiritual meaning of compassion and self-love? And that we learn how compassion and self-love can actually elevate our consciousness. How can we avoid common misconceptions and risks in this area? Because of course we don't want to be too narcissistic or too sort of centered around, you know, that can be the danger of self-love. And then we're going to look at what are the practical steps from the scriptures and the wisdom teachings. So my questions to you, all of you, are, what does compassion mean to you? How do you see compassion as a feeling or an action? And how do you treat yourself when you make a mistake? Have you ever thought of self-love as selfish? And what stops you from being more compassionate towards yourself or others? So there's quite a few questions there for you. I'm sure there'll be one there that might stand out for you. And if that's the case, why don't you just respond in the chat or unmute? You're very welcome to contribute. Who would like to start? Rishma, would you like to start, my love? I don't know if you can hear me, Rishma. A big smile on your face. Have a go.
Okay. The main question is, how do you treat yourself when you make a mistake? It's usually, I think I shut myself off from everyone. Yeah, I think I sort of, try and block my, I just feel I don't know how to face people basically when I've made a mistake. So it's just hiding away from everybody really and trying to deal with it.
Thank you for your honesty. I can identify with that. There's sometimes the guilt and the shame as well. Like, how can I face others? It's easier to, like you said, just kind of protect yourself. So thank you for that honesty. I can absolutely identify with that. Neri, you had your camera on, my love, and you've just disappeared. Tell us more.
So when I do something and I feel guilty about it, I first of all apologize to whoever if I've offended anybody. And then I just withdraw into myself and I do reflections and try to figure out why I acted the way I acted and how I can go about rectifying that. And I just find my answers in all the scriptures, and that's what I do. I don't I don't be hard on myself, and I don't try to bring myself down. I try to rectify what I've done.
Well, thank you, Neri. That's quite an elevated way of dealing with it. And of course, the scriptures tell us, sometimes even in I deal a lot with conflict and conflict resolution, that sometimes it's easier just to say sorry. But in the world of litigation, sometimes you have to be careful what you say, because then it's literally taken like that. In the spiritual world, the sorry is, I'm sorry that you feel that pain. But the inside part of you, which I know for me, because I like to be right, is I'm not going to apologize. Let me try and understand the situation. What really went on? What were the things that going on in the background? So yes, these are some opening questions that we want to be thinking about. What does compassion mean to us, and what is it, a feeling or is it an action? That's an interesting one. Something for you to think about and ponder on. So, what is the art of compassion? Spiritual compassion, from a spiritual perspective, is not based on the body, but it's actually based on the soul. How can we, sometimes they'll say there's a toss-up between giving all your money to a hungry person, giving them the fish sometimes, instead of helping them to learn how to fish. And here in the spiritual context, what we're saying is that sometimes bodily compassion is short. It's very short. It can be complex. It can end up in some dysfunctional challenges. And yet there is a duty of compassion, but at the same time, the real compassion, keeping in sight, is actually that how do we help people to understand they're a spirit soul and how to alleviate their suffering? We're all experiencing suffering. The adhyatmic, adibodhik, adidevik. So how can we share whatever little spiritual knowledge we have with others so that we can help them to reconnect to the truth of who they are? That is their eternal loveliness, that they are special and they're part and parcel of the Supreme. The Bhagavad-gita says, someone who's compassionate is someone who's not envious, but a kind friend. And Krishna says, that is, such a person is very dear to them. There's an interesting example in the Srimad Bhagavatam. I mean, they call Srimad Bhagavatam the cream of Vedic literature. When I started reading it, I found it really life transforming. And what I will say to you is that the story of King Rantidev, here's a king who, sometimes when we have a lot in life, we can start becoming indifferent to others. We can see that sometimes rogue rulers will fill their pockets and will be completely disconnected to their people. But here, King Rantidev is also, he's thinking about the distress of others and how he can actually make them happy and how he can take their pain away. So the key lesson here from the Srimad Bhagavatam we learn is that compassion is selfless. It's a selfless service with a spiritual vision. Yeah, it's really important to keep that in mind, that real compassion is always based on the spirituality. So what is self-love then, spiritually? What does that mean? Well, caring for yourself as Krishna's servant and actually honoring your spiritual identity means you're maintaining your mind, body, and soul to serve better. Our body is a vehicle for us to enable us to serve with our heart, with our mind. And so we have to take care of that. I mean, it's said that the body is a temple and it's a gift from Krishna. Here, one thing we have to understand is that self-love is deeply an understanding also. Well, actually, let me just expand on the Bhagavatam and then I'll go on to the final bit. Bhagavatam, self-love isn't when we neglect our soul. Often we think self-love is I'll take care of my body, I'll take care of my senses, I'll take care of my mind. But really, it's said, it describes the analogy of a tree. that to actually take care of your soul is like watering the roots of the tree. Otherwise, if you don't, the tree becomes dead and you're so busy trying to water the leaves. And a very great a devotee, Mahatma Prabhu, he's written some very nice books. One book is called Self-Care Affirmations. And he says self-care isn't selfish, it's an essential part of our spiritual progress. Now, I would say to you that self-love is actually understanding that Krishna loves me. There is a supreme intelligence, there's a supreme being, supreme divinity that loves me despite my faults, despite me bungling up, despite me making mistakes. And I accept God's love, and I give myself the same love and affection that He gives me. I remember when my husband died, I stopped kind of taking care of myself, and I had friends and devotees who kind of pulled me up and said, well, if your husband was here, he wouldn't be very happy, would he? Would Krishna be happy that you're neglecting yourself? It was an insight into understanding that actually the Supreme Lord absolutely loves us. And while the material world is full of exploitation, I was reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, I think chapter 46 or 47. Srila Prabhupada says often material relationships are based on exchanges, what you can do for me, I can do for you. But spiritual relationships are Krishna loves us unconditionally, not for what we can do for him, not what how we look or who we are. Krishna absolutely loves us unconditionally for who we are. We have to recognize that we are lovable, we are worthy of love. There are misunderstandings around love, and those are, the egoistic pride. I'm the center of attention, it's all about me, instead of saying, okay, I'm Krishna's servant. Now, pride sets in, we become defensive, we become sometimes greedy, we become selfish, insensitive. These are the kind of things that actually come in when we think, okay, I'm going to look after myself, I'm going to put myself first, and everybody else can wait. Well, that's not what this real self-love is about. It's a deep inner feeling of deep connection. And then, another misunderstanding is, I neglect others by overindulging in my own personal comfort. One of the greatest examples I can give is in the old days, and I think about 60s, 70s, 80s, if your relatives came over, if there wasn't a bed or a spare bedroom for them, everybody kipped out on the floor, and somehow you just got through the day, and everybody had fun, and you got on each other's nerves, and the family were cooking away, and there was that amazing kind of love that was there because people were more important than things. And nowadays you think, well, if someone's coming over, I need to have a bedroom, I need to have it all set up, otherwise they're not. Recently I had some guests who said they were coming, husband and wife. When the doorbell rang, 4 of them rocked up. I got into anxiety thinking, oh my God, I don't think I can, take care of their needs. But you know what? In that bedroom, all 4 of them kipped out on the floor, and they were just so happy. And it made me think that we so overindulge in our comfort and we think about others, but actually sometimes all people want is just loving exchanges. And this is becoming more and more challenging because it's easier to go online, it's easier to fire off texts, it's easier not to explain yourself, it's just easy. I just, say what I say. If I want to jump ship on something, I can jump ship and I can walk away and bury myself. And these are things that I think sometimes we're losing the ability to engage and exchange, because our own self-love comes from having loving relationships with others. And then this is another important one, neglecting the soul by focusing on the body. People out there are so focused on their mind and their body that the soul is so malnourished. It's crying out for connection. I was reading some recent statistics by the World Health Organization and the United Nations, and they were saying, like in America, children are more at risk of dying at their own hands of suicide, and more than 50% of adults are depressed. So, if we focus too much on the body and the mind, it's not going to give us that deep sustenance that the soul does. And soul means connection, it means service, it means, in the old days, the back door was always open or the front door was open, the neighbor came in and they'd say, oh, I've had a terrible day, what's going on? Sit down, let's have a cup of tea. We just don't do that anymore. We're so engaged in the outside world, but not so engaged within ourselves, but with others. The final one, the misunderstanding of self-love, is this idea of envy and self-envy. Envy, we know that is the root of all our disturbance, is the root of all our unhappiness, where we knowingly or unknowingly, consciously or unconsciously, may feel some kind of jealousy or irritation against others. But self-envy is when we harm ourselves instead of being gentle and kind with ourselves. And this is a really important factor. The spiritual literatures talk about self-envy. When we do things that end up harming us, sometimes we harm others. Well, it's definitely going to harm us. So thinking about the long term, about taking good care of ourselves, means we also end up taking good care of other people. Again, Srimad Bhagavatam, I cited the Bhagavad-gita to you. Srimad Bhagavatam 555 repeats the same thing, watering the leaves but neglecting the root. We just read about the dead root. Here, there's repetition again. So we want to water the root of, if we were thinking of an analogy of a tree, the root is our identity. It's who we are. Who am I? Why am I here? What am I about? If the root is weak, if the root is malnourished, if the trunk grows and there's a storm, the trunk will fall down, but so will the roots will be uprooted. But strong roots sustain a tree. They enable the tree, the trunk, which represents our relationships with ourselves and others, and also the crown that enables us to, the fruit of our activities, what we can give the world, how we can serve others, the contributions we make, can be there only if the root of who we are and identity stays strong. And actually, the dysfunctional self-love is leading people to more and more loneliness. Loneliness, they say, is probably one of the biggest killers at the moment, particularly with elderly people. But, many, many people, because this whole idea of living with families and connecting with families, yes, it's irritating, yes, it's frustrating, but it's a cost, the loneliness is a huge cost to our well-being. When someone's lonely, there'll be lots of issues going on within their mind. Nobody loves me, I'm on my own. That this whole feeling of abandonment can come up. But then, you see the yogis, they look like they're lonely, but they're connected. So there's a difference between solitude and loneliness. Real self-love allows you to have solitude. So how does compassion elevate our consciousness? Earlier, Rishma, you said, I was thinking about yesterday, because I bungled up, and first of all, my whole mind goes into this story like I'm right and they're wrong, and I know why it happened. And then yesterday, I had to just like suck up the shame and the guilt and the fear, and just say, look, I'm really sorry. Please forgive me. This is what happened. And I thought, I felt like a little child, like it was so humiliating. But it's humiliating for the ego, the false ego, because the ego is identified with the sense of like importance, like, don't they know how smart and how clever I am? But actually, I think it's okay not to take ourselves so seriously, and to maybe sometimes explore when we bungle up. The people were very kind. They like, no, it's okay, fine. Like my boss just said, I know how you are, like nobody died, don't worry, carry on. So much love and affection. So I think sometimes we're more harder with ourselves than other people are. But when we have emotions of shame, guilt, fear, these emotions sometimes come from the root of our childhood, where we're trying to be perfect, or, bungling up. Uh, there's a big deal made about it. But actually, shame, guilt, and fear come at almost like the lowest level of our consciousness. It restricts our growth, it steals our happiness. It ends up where we start obsessing on how terrible things are. And actually, to counteract that, if we do feel like that, one way we can actually address it is by working on forgiveness. And actually, forgiveness and compassion are friends. Without forgiveness, you can't have compassion. Without compassion, you can't have forgiveness. So we have to work at understanding it on a spiritual level. Krishna already forgives me. Krishna loves me. I'm worthy, and I'm here in this material world because I'm here to learn the lessons of why I exist. And yeah, what do they say? To be in the material world, you're bound to make mistakes. You're bound to have imperfect senses. You're bound to, bungle things up. It's the nature of this world, because we know that when we completely depend on our mind, it's not always it's going to give us a distorted perception of the world. What we want to get to is a place of courage and acceptance. Because when we get to a place of courage and acceptance, we can have a sense of service and humility. Yes, I bungled up. I'm so sorry. I have a healthy regret, and I move on. But I don't keep myself. I always think of myself, when I used to, and I did this for many, many, many years. And I think just like when I get to 60, it's kind of dropping. Well, don't do what I did, because I'm such a slow learner. But if you, if self-compassion is so important, nobody really teaches you how to do it. I think it's just having a healthy understanding and a regret. Yes, this is the way of the world, and I'm learning as I'm going along. I think that's the only way we can take it. And if we're not compassionate with others, then with ourselves, if we're not compassionate with ourselves, we'll be also hard on others. So I think it's really important to sometimes, even see that childlike, the younger you, almost kind of embracing the younger you and just giving that comfort. It's okay. It's okay. It's going to be all right. And then compassion, of course, real compassion comes through courage and acceptance, and that we can practice that through humility and service. And then love, joy, and peace is through pure devotion. That I see Krishna everywhere. There's a beautiful verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it goes like this: Krishna Vasudevaya Hare Paramatmane Pranat Kleshna Shaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. So Krishna is in everyone's heart. And if we see that Krishna is in everything, then the challenges will be teaching us something about an opportunity for us to develop. It's always an opportunity for us to grow. And if there's sweet exchanges, it's just like Krishna giving you a hug. But either way, they're hugs, because Krishna is ultimately the sanctioner and he exists in our heart and another person's heart. They're just instruments in our growth in this world. So what are the practical steps for compassion? Well, you see everybody as a soul. When we see everybody as a soul, eternal, lovely, the eternal loveliness, then there's a sense of understanding that, the beauty of another person, the beauty of that soul. And then again, we can elevate our mind by japa and scripture. And we're just going to jump back to seeing everybody as a soul. It's not easy. It is just not easy. But the Heidelberg principle, if you have an intention to want to see that soul, that eternal loveliness in that person that you can't stand, that makes your life such a misery, is like, such a monster. You try to send out prayers that please let me have the intention to see something beautiful in them, because it's easy to love somebody who likes you, but it's a challenge. But if we have the intention that please allow me to see that person as a soul, it actually enables us to be a bit more sensitive and kind to ourselves and others. So of course, japa, japa, there's a verse in the Shikshashtaka, Jetadarpana Marjanam Mahadevagani Nirapanam Shekareva Chandrika Vitanam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivadanam Pratiparam Purnatsvadanam Sarvatmasnapanam Paramavijayata Shri Krishna Sankirtan. If you want to remove all the subconscious stuff that's going on in your unconscious, that's been there lifetime after lifetime, it's like rubbing off the dust on the mirror. It's the fastest way to do it. Japa and scripture. It has supernatural, mystical powers to remove stuff that we're not even aware of. And then the Bhagavad-gita, time after time, and Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna says, try to find a way of acting compassionately every day. Where have I acted compassionately? Where have I, I'm one of those people, I like really good customer service. And if you go to India and you go to a 5-star hotel, you get really good customer service. And then you go in a little cafe, maybe in Vrindavan, and it's like faulty towers, and you might get served, you might not get served, you might get missed out. The waiter might slap your plate down and say, oh, go on, get on with it, you're in my way, sort of thing. I get very irritated, but how, so one of my things is how can I, when I don't get that customer service, because I think I'm the center of the world, I'm the customer, of course. How can I act compassionately? How can I act compassionately towards those who are sometimes mean? Because the reality is those who hurt are hurting. How can I take a step back, not take it too personally, and think about what they might be going through? And then caring for our mind and body as instruments of service. The Vedic diet is really important. I think I've realized that I'm beginning to realize this more and more. Excess sugar, caffeine, certain foods, if they overstimulate you, you're going to lose that sensitivity and that sensation. So really thinking about how we take care of our mind and body. Sometimes we're overworking, we're not giving ourselves proper breaks. It's really trying to factor that in, because remember, the body and the mind is a powerful instrument of service. Without the body and mind, we can't really serve. And then the final bit, you know, don't linger on stuff that self-punishment when things when issues arise. Just forgive yourself, let go of the shame and guilt, and have a healthy regret. Like I tell myself, well, you've done that, you've bungled up. It's okay. Krishna loves you. Try to love yourself and just don't do it again, you know? So, I mean, I wish I could not do it again. My family will tell you I bungle up all the time. They say I jump too quickly. I always want to have the last word. But, you just keep, every day's a new day. You just keep trying. But these are really important practical steps that really help us. The other one that I haven't written on here is silence. Because of course my family love me when I go on those silent days, they absolutely love it because they actually get a word in. But actually silence is, it's, if you want to make rapid progress in your life, you want to bring that compassion in your life, you want to bring that self-love, start practicing silence because, it brings harmony into your life. And it enables you to give kind of love and affection, without having to express it in words, without having to express it in actions. Silence is a extremely powerful tool. The Bhagavad-gita says, the Lord always protects those saintly devotees who takes vows of silence. So, it's silence is one of those things I think we don't do enough of. We've got the noise of social media, we've got the noise of everything going around us. We can be externally silent, but what I'm talking about is silence where we go in, enables us to regenerate, review ourselves spiritually, emotionally, mentally. It actually helps us to raise our consciousness. So another practical step. So what are the daily practices? Here's a lovely affirmation. I'm Krishna's servant. Let me serve with love today. Just keep reminding us who we are. I mean, the other thing I was saying to Saj today is, I've had to keep saying to myself, when I wake up in the morning and just say, this is a mad world, right? Don't take it too seriously. The reality is I'm a spirit soul and I can't allow myself to forget that, because if I forget that, I just get embroiled into the drama and the dysfunctions of the world. And then, of course, if you're incorporating a morning ritual, good chanting with focus and sincerity, it's a gift to yourself, actually. Instead of picking up the phone or getting distracted or thinking about the washing machine or putting the clothes on the line because the weather's so great, let me get that done. No, just focus on your chanting and do one conscious act of kindness. What's the one thing I can do that can be kind to somebody else? Is there somebody struggling at the parking machine, and somehow or other the money's not going through, and it might just be £2 or £3? Can I just do that as an act of love for a stranger? What can I do? An act of love doesn't cost money. A conscious act of kindness can just be a kind word to somebody, and we don't know what impact that will make on them. And then thinking at the end of the day, the gratitude and reflection, instead of thinking about the gap and all the things that we were hoping to get done and we didn't get, we fill that gap through gratitude. And who we hang out with, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, has a big impact on your consciousness. So try to spend time with spiritual minded people who are compassionate. And yeah, I mean, other things like journaling. Yeah, there was something else that came to my mind, but it's gone, but maybe I'll come back to that. So let's just do a closing meditation, because in a moment, when I end this presentation, we can have a good old chat about this. So let's put our hand on our heart and close our eyes. The real compassion is about self-satisfaction. It's about not fearing the world. So, my dear Lord, please help me to rise above fear and pride into love and joy. Help me to see myself and others as your eternal servants and act with compassion. And I want you to put forward in your mind's eye one person who needs your compassion today. In this moment, who needs your compassion? And then shower them with love. Even though you might not want to do it in person, here's the opportunity to build a bridge. And when you're ready, you can come back in the room. So the key takeaways are that the art of compassion is seeing others as spirit souls, and trying to serve them from a place of compassion and love. And then self-love is actually honoring our spiritual identity and taking care of our spiritual needs. Oh, you know, it's important to look after your body. Prabhupada says health comes first, but don't neglect your spiritual well-being. And elevate your consciousness through prayer, service, humility, gratitude, and of course, giving your compassion to others. So the final reflection is that what's the one spiritual compassion? What's one act of spiritual compassion that I will practice this week towards myself and others? And you can write it down. And you can also share.
Wow, Nandarane, thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's such a timely reminder around all of those concepts. We live such a material existence, and it's so, I think the one biggest takeaway I'll have for that question at the end is for the week going forward, I'll try and lead from my soul rather than my ego. It's very easy to lead from that wounded place, and not try and transcend above that from a higher place of more expansive emotions rather than the constrictive ones. Yeah. How is everyone else feeling? What are your reflections on that? I really liked that you said self-care isn't selfish as well. That's an essential part of our spiritual progress. I think especially growing up in a South Asian culture, I don't think that word self-care resonates a lot, especially like it would just be seen as some form of being lazy or something, or like what self-care? It's like collective first, isn't it? So yeah, I think you've really helped us on taking those practical steps to seeing everyone else as a soul, but also seeing ourselves as a soul too. So thank you.
Thank you. It's so hard, isn't it, when we're wounded and we're trying to preserve our dignity and we're trying to preserve ourselves,
Yeah.
There's always like that defensiveness, and the thing is, people pick it up, we pick it up. But coming from that place of that inner strength within ourselves, really taking care of our nourishing the inner self, actually helps us to not be so take it so seriously, you know, and we can walk away and just say, okay, that was another day. Was it Descartes? He said, you know, just know that you're going to wake up and you're going to deal with difficult people, awkward people, selfish people. So don't be surprised, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, every day I'm looking for that love and that affirmation and saying, oh, well done, you know, you did well. And but then I get criticism, or I get pulled up, or there's backbiting, or there's politics, and then that kind of, you kind of turn on yourself, don't you, as well? So
Yeah.
we don't want to do that. When we recognize I'm a spirit soul, don't take this world too seriously. Focus on what this is about. The knowledge comes that it's the false ego that gets wounded, not the real you.
Yeah, yeah. I think what makes the Bhagavad-gita still so relevant is Arjuna's plight is often those trigger points, or those people who can be triggering towards you are the people who are closest to you, you know, like his own family members on the battlefield, his own cousins
Yeah.
and gurus and those things. So yeah,
It's
just
interesting, Saj, because on that note in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, on the one hand, Krishna says, be compassionate. But then Krishna says, well, you know, these are sort of, this is making you weak, you know, because
yeah.
he's saying, you know, what about the women and the children? They'll all be, you know, affected and abandoned. And then Prabhupada expands on that Arjuna was very soft-hearted. You know, he was really thinking about the well-being of others. And that's a very important quality in spirituality, and it's trying to balance that as well as trying to do your duty
Mm,
and finding that self-care. And that self-care, I think I've realized, it really only comes with understanding I'm a spirit soul. And when when I understand I'm a spirit soul, I know when to call it a day. I know now when to have you know confrontation or a challenge,
mm,
and when to just walk away and say no. Like, you know, I had to write 3 notes yesterday right in front of my desk. Do not react, do not react, do not react. Because you know the mind just comes in, the ego comes in, and you want to
yeah.
be defensive, and you're wounded and you're hurt, and you just want, you know, and actually all you're trying to say is that you just want to be loved, you know? And I think that's what happens with other people as well, you know, when they're like that, when we see that behavior, we almost mirror it, but actually what they need is just our love.
Mm. That's super powerful. But also going back to that Bhagavad Gita point you made about Arjuna being almost too soft and kind-hearted, how can we develop that kind of fortitude to push on and essentially do those uncomfortable things which are necessary to create that peace for yourself and to create that safety for yourself?
Well, Krishna gave Arjuna the knowledge, didn't he? Because Arjuna was right in the thick of it and he couldn't see, what do you see? The tree from the
Yeah, the wood from the trees,
wood
or
from the trees. That's right. Thank you, Saj.
yeah,
So
is
he
it? I
couldn't
think
see the
it,
wood from the tree. So he needed the knowledge and he needed the clarity. And then Krishna gave him all that information about going within, understanding yourself, understanding the world. And so that's really important for us, that knowledge, that prayer that we say, Om Gyana Dimanandasya. That's about reminding us every day who we are. And of course, when we remember who we are, then we don't take the body so seriously, because Arjun's job was, yes, they were his relatives, they were his people, and he would rather curl up and die himself than to harm them. But Krishna was reminding him what was his duty, and he had to do his duty uh, and not get so attached to either the outcome. And that's the challenge we have when we're working in the world or we're with families, it's all about, like you said, sometimes in South Asian background, like I have jobs for my sons. I have one kid coming over from Birmingham this weekend, and I think I've got a great list for you of all the jobs you can do for me. And then I have to hold myself back and go, no, you want to put the relationship first, not all the jobs you need doing, because yeah, so we're brought up in some of us that work is really important, and that is important. Laziness, we don't want laziness, but I think we have to just balance out what's our duty and how we can show up in the right way. For Arjuna, his duty was he was a Kshatriya, and therefore he had been trained from lifetime to become a warrior, and he had to do it for the greater good, for the future of the kingdom, because otherwise he wouldn't have served. So sometimes, yes, we have to speak up. Sometimes we have to be assertive, as long as we don't do it in a vindictive way, we're doing it because it's in our position to do it, then we have to be assertive. So assertion, boundaries, having clear demarcations, these are things that keep us safe and they keep other people safe.
Super powerful. Thank you, Nandarane. That's really helpful. I think it ties in with something that Neri said here in the comments. She said, I resonate with this so deeply because this speaks very much to my tendencies, but she's written, I think that when we seek validation from others, then self-love will be very difficult to practice. If we have a connection with Krishna, then we will know that we don't need to work on feeling validated because he loves us regardless of our circumstances or looks or those kinds of things, etc.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Thanks, Neri.
and what Neri is saying is that sensitivity, isn't it? What we're all looking for is sensitive interactions with people. And that's what makes us human. And there's nothing wrong in that. But what gives us the sustenance and the strength is to understand, as Neri said, that this is kind of taking me off. I'm looking for something that I might not ever get. And we may continue seeking that, that good girl or good boy thing in that, well done, well done. And actually, sometimes people just want, they just want something and they take it. And Bhagavatam talks about it. Actually, the gopis talk about it in Canto 10, that, people will come and go. They'll want something for you. They may say nice things because they want something from you. But the reality of life is that that's the nature of exchanges, material exchanges. Real spiritual exchanges means I'm so grounded in the truth of who I am. I already know Krishna loves me. And I think that's that affirmation that I shared with you all earlier, Krishna loves me unconditionally.
Yeah,
Krishna's always on my side.
yeah,
We have to keep reminding ourselves that.
yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Does anyone else have any reflections on anything Nandarani shared or anything that stood out to them in particular on developing compassion for yourself? Just
Love,
while, but
yeah, I'd love to hear from Karishma and Akshita and Ruby, Snehal. I know all your cameras are off, but it'd be lovely to see your beautiful faces, or if you want to add anything, because I think a big part of these wisdom talks are exchanges with each other.
yeah, yeah,
Akshita, what are your thoughts, my love?
So I'm gonna say I feel that once I need to basically start practicing more about how not to take things personally, because I feel once I start doing that, um, that's the first step of compassion, showing compassion towards people around me.
yeah,
And like you say, we shouldn't take the world too seriously. And I think I, for one, definitely still hold on to things tightly. And I need to let this go.
Yeah, thank you for
Me too.
we're all in
Thank
the same boat, Akshita. You know, your
Yeah.
share is so powerful because we all feel like that. And when we say I should do this, it's just kind of being gentle with yourself, you know, that I will do this, I will take care of myself, and it's not wrong. Yeah,
Thank you, Akshita.
yeah, really appreciate that. What about Snehal and Karishma and Ruby? What are your thoughts? We'd love to hear from you. All right. Well,
No
I'm
pressure, no pressure, like no pressure.
yeah. I'm gonna hand it over to you because
No
clearly,
particular thoughts, no particular thoughts from Ruby. She's just said in the chat, but
nice,
um,
Ruby.
yeah, we're coming towards the end of the session now. Anyway, we're in the last couple of minutes. I just want to say thank you to you, Nandarane, for just being so open-hearted and sharing, and just gentle as well. I think one thing you've reiterated throughout this evening's, or this wisdom talk in particular, is going back, always going back to the soul, always going back to the soul, going back to the soul. That's like my biggest takeaway from this, because that anchor is such, like, I don't think you can get a deeper anchor than that. It's the deepest anchor you can find, and it's such a great point of resonance to come back to. Especially, we're living in a world which is becoming more conflictual by the day. And I think it's a really timely reminder that coming back to the soul can allow us to bring some more shades of humanity back to our interactions, not just with the people around us, but with ourselves. So thank you for that. Those are my takeaways. And I really, I mean, I told you how I was feeling before the session started, so I'm really grateful.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me as always. It's I always think these sessions are about my learning, you know, more than anyone else. Uh, and you know, thank you to everybody on the group, and especially you, Saj. What I love about having this chat with you is it feels like it's so comfortable. You're like with a friend, you know, and you just got like-minded people, and you can have a good old banter. That's how they're just equally nourishing for me as well. So thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome, and hopefully we'll have you, no doubt we'll have you back very, very soon. And thanks for just bringing such brilliant wisdom to our talks, whether it's last time we were doing sacred spaces. I remember that was such a great conversation. This one on self-love and compassion, and there've been quite a few others. So I just really want to thank you, and yeah, we'll see you soon.